It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Folks, if you look on that gigantic, sharp, interactive board, you're going to see the Ricoh logo, and above it, I'm asking the question, is the crash coming again? Folks, I believe Ricoh will, in fact, have an impairment charge coming soon. Could be this quarter, could be next quarter. But all the stuff they're doing in Europe reminds me so much of what they did here in the United States regarding Mindshift. Remember a few years back? Well, ladies and gentlemen, remember 7 years back when Ricoh had the billion-plus impairment charge? You remember that? Well, ladies and gentlemen, what did they do? They told the whole world how the IT service thing was changing. What they thought they were going to get out of Mindshift isn't really working out. They told the whole world 7 years ago that they were going to go out there and focus on stuff that's profitable. And then the global pandemic came, and our friends at Ricoh got some success selling Scrum services in Japan. And I think they got kind of crazy like our friends at HP. They lived in this little bubble for about a year and a half, 2 years. They had some pretty good operating profit in their services, their digital services, and they got all excited. And then they told the whole world, hey, we're going to focus on being a digital services company. And then what happened? Well, the industry's media and analysts proved how absolutely inept they are in understanding where the industry's future is. And they all started calling up Ricoh and saying, hey, we saw this article in Bloomberg and you guys are going to become a digital services company and that means print's not important to you anymore. Well, our readers and our subscribers, they're all freaking out. I mean, you got to come on our shows and tell the whole world how important A3 is to you. And of course, the Ricoh leaders did exactly that. Ricoh, do you have a global strategy? I'm going to ask you that question because I don't believe you really do. And if you do, is your indecisiveness on that strategy causing you the problems? Ricoh, I got another question. Are you hiding poor management by hiding the numbers? You know, when you look at Ricoh's financials, I'll share some interesting things here with you around the services business in today's episode. But, you know, it's all great. Let's show the numbers when we're profitable. When we start getting hiccups, let's start moving stuff around. Let's start playing the shell game. Ricoh's not the only OEM that does this. But Ricoh, I was really amazed at what you did with the services business regarding the numbers. So without any further ado, let's jump on the board. I'm going to share my thoughts with you. The first thing we want to talk about is the brand new press releases that came out. When I read these, I kind of had deja vu. Hey, Ricoh wants to be a digital services company. You know, print's declining. Pages are declining. They got to let go 2,000 people. When I read these press releases, the very first thing I thought of, I hope that the leaders are included in the 2,000 people that backtracked this conversation a couple of years ago. I hope those were the first ones to get the axe. Seriously. All those leaders at Ricoh that ran around to pacify the print industry with the nonsense about how A3 is important to them and Bloomberg had it wrong and blah, blah, blah. If they would have been focused on becoming a digital services company, we probably wouldn't be seeing these headlines here today. Just saying. 7 years ago, Ricoh had an impairment charge. At today's Forex, it was around $1.2 billion. But ladies and gentlemen, when you read what contributed to the impairment charge, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but what I do want to do is blow up a section of it. Let me read this to you, and I want you all to pay attention. I will now explain the situation with Mindshift, because Mindshift was part of the impairment charge. And here's what Ricoh said. In keeping with our initial goals, acquisition of Mindshift in 2014 enabled us to expand services in the United States, develop service offerings, and secure information technology expertise and know how to build customer trust. At the same time, the market climate changed dramatically, and the rapid penetration of cloud services and the entry of large information technology players into the small and medium-sized enterprise market, these factors made it increasingly unlikely that the company would generate the earnings we initially anticipated. In light of operating environment changes and in the office services segment, we decided to focus on businesses offering solid earnings potential. Further, in February 2018, we introduced the Ricoh Ignite Growth Strategy to pursue development initiatives to deliver unique added value to our customer base. In particular, we shifted resources to drive workflow reforms that bring front lines and offices together through communication services. And we're going to do all these things because we want to focus on things that are more profitable. Ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the day, Ricoh, you've done nothing. You've done nothing. Your operating profit hasn't moved at all. In 2019, for the company, you had a 3.9% operating profit. That was the best year you've had. And here we are in 2024, your first quarter. Your first quarter in 2024, you got a 1.1% operating profit. You're forecasting to do for the whole year 2.8. In 2023, you had a 2.6. In 2021, you had a 2.3. In 2020, you lost your shirt. $312.6 million loss. So what you thought you were going to be doing in 2017, what you told the whole world you were going to be doing, focusing on more profitable things, didn't seem to work out for you. And why is that? Well, folks, here's what I think. I looked at the office services business. This was for the FY 2020 results. And in the FY 2020 year, guess what? Ricoh categorized office services in its own category, and that was all the IT stuff. There was no print at all in this category. It was IT services, IT infrastructure, applications, and business process services. In this year of 2020, you know what? The operating profit was 8.4% in office services. And I believe a lot of that had to do with those scrum packages they were selling in Japan. But I also believe this was the time that Ricoh got all excited. Got all excited. They saw this and said, oh, we're going to do this all over the world. And then they went on this shopping spree in Europe. Ladies and gentlemen, this is for the year ending 2023. Now they got Ricoh Digital Services. In Ricoh Digital Services, they have office printing and they have office services. It's all mixed up together. What a great way to hide the numbers. And at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, it had a 2.2% operating profit. 2% operating profit. Wouldn't you like to know what the office services operating profit is on its own? Because, back in 2020, it was 8.4%. You would think that the office printing, they could make money there, right? Obviously, something's killing them. I believe it's office services. I believe they built a platform around office services based on a balloon, a bubble, and it popped. Let's look at their first quarter. Their first quarter for digital services for this current year, operating profit, 0.18%. Not even a 0.25%. This is where they're going. They want to be a digital services company. I sarcastically said when I showed this slide when I was sharing their financials at the end of their first quarter, don't go tell the whole world you want to be a services company because they're going to freak out if you do it. Because obviously you can't deliver services profitably. Was I wrong? This was the article back in March of 2021 that should have proved to the entire print industry how inept the industry's media and analysts and consultants are. This is the article that should have proved it to everybody in our industry. Bloomberg came out with an article talking about digital services, Ricoh, changing the game. Ricoh had the largest stock increase in their history when they came out with this article. And what did Ricoh do? They listened to the crying, whining of an industry's media and analyst and ran around and backtracked this conversation. It will go down in history as probably the worst management decision Ricoh made in communication. It is for me. I mean, maybe I could give them an award for that. But it proved to our industry. It proved to our industry that our industry's media and analysts are just a venue for people to go and tell you all what you want to hear. And it's really upsetting because our industry's going through a major disruption, we got all kinds of things going on. And some of the things that are going on are going to be really, really painful to a whole lot of status quo. And that status quo better wake up to that fact. And without a real media outlet, without real consultants in our industry, how in the world are we going to alert the industry of these things? It does give me cause, and I'll continue to do what I do. But at the end of the day, back when the whole industry was allowing Ricoh to go on their platforms and talk about how A3 was important to them, I was here doing the end of the day with Ray, talking about all this stuff. I was actually complimenting him on it. I was challenging him. Okay, you want to be a digital services company. Are you going to be able to pull it off? Are you going to stay focused and do it? Frankly speaking, just one of the media outlets. So upset with Ricoh. We're so upset with you. You got to justify what you're talking about, Ricoh. I got to ask the question, why is the industry so comfortable with media designed to keep everybody happy as opposed to keeping them healthy? What in the world's wrong with us as an industry? Seriously. You know, I've shared a video when Ricoh was talking about how digital services would be the majority of their operating profit. Well, I just showed you their first quarter numbers, so that's crazy, right? It ain't going to happen. But here's the reality. Maybe Ricoh should be focusing on the total company's operating profit and get that number up to 7, 8, or 9, 10%. And then they can focus on the digital services piece being a major contributor to the total company's operating profit. Because you could have 25% of your operating profit coming from digital services, but if it's only 0.18%, that ain't going to help you out, Ricoh. Ricoh, the shopping spree, I talked about it many times. This is where we're going to see some major impairment charges. I'm telling you, they're coming. They're coming, folks. Ricoh, I got to be honest with you. When you start talking about digital services, when you share your aspirations around DocuWare, you ran around, you bought up some other companies to kind of complement DocuWare, I think you got to be really, really serious with the marketplace. Because what the hell is the total revenue of DocuWare? You know? You're like a $15 billion company that's not making any money, and you're running around talking about how important DocuWare is, and all the stuff you bought and added to DocuWare, but what's the total revenue of all this? $100 million? It's nothing. It's literally nothing. You say you're in 100 countries. I mean, you could dump DocuWare tomorrow and just pick up $1 million in every one of those countries and you'd be better off. If it was $1 million in something that was profitable. I just think, and this is where the industry's media analysts and consultants got to start hammering these OEMs when they come out with this nonsense. You know, what does this mean? $100 million business? Even if it's $200 million, it's irrelevant to the big scheme of things over at Ricoh. Especially if we don't even understand what the profitability of it is. Ricoh, let's make some segment changes. Let's move some stuff around. Let's get the shells out and hide some more things. Ricoh, 60+%, largely through office services. That's where they want their sales. Office services, largely through office services. Of course, now office services also means print, right? Folks, at the end of the day, I believe it's Ricoh's indecisiveness. I believe it's Ricoh's weak leadership that couldn't address this digital services conversation 2 years ago and allowed it to be overtaken by the status quo. That's causing Ricoh's issues. And I also believe it's a board level thing. I look at some of these OEMs and I'm really starting to question these boards. How are you allowing this leadership to continue? And folks, at the end of the day, I can't be the only one thinking this. I'm just the only one saying it out loud. But we're looking at some of these OEMs and we got to be questioning, what the hell is going on here? How are these people even maintaining their positions? We got people out there in senior leadership positions hanging around, waiting until they retire, afraid to challenge any status quo, afraid to bring up anything painful. Oh, I just hope I can hang out just for a couple more years, right? If I can hang out a couple more years, I'd be fine. I can move out to the desert and start being a consultant or something. I just need a couple more years. Ricoh, don't be like the guy in the desert, heading towards an oasis knowing clearly it's only a mirage. Be decisive. Tell the world your global strategy. Tell the world how you're failing at IT and IT services. Admit to it and then fix it. Because, ladies and gentlemen, regardless of what our industry's media analysts and consultants tell you, regardless of what they tell you, the industry is going to change. The actors are going to change. And the way the industry gets its information is going to change. And I'm going to do everything I can to help with some of those changes. Because everybody watching me knows this: status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo, and I'll see y'all tomorrow.